Hi, everyone, and welcome to Neuro English Now. I'm your host, John, joined as always by Sarah.
Hello, listeners. We're so glad you're here. Today's episode is for those of you ready to elevate your English to the next level with advanced phrases for conversations.
Yes, and here's the thing. Sometimes it's those high-level phrases that really set you apart. They're what make your English sound, not just functional, but polished and confident, like you're totally in command of the conversation.
Exactly. And we're not just going to throw out some fancy phrases and leave you hanging. Nope. We're diving into practical ways to learn and use them, rooted in neurodidactic techniques.
Neurodidactics, it's such a cool word, right? It basically means using research about how the brain learns to make language learning easier and more effective. And honestly, who doesn't want things to be easier?
Right? And we'll make this interactive too. So, grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and practice along with us today.
Yes, say the phrases out loud, like really out loud, even if you feel a little silly. It's all about building those muscle memories.
And hey, if you're not sure about neurodidactics yet, don't worry. By the end of this episode, you'll see how it really works. You'll totally get why it's such a game changer for learning.
So stick with us, because by the end of today, you'll not only have learned some brand new phrases, but you'll also have some tools to remember and use them confidently.
As John mentioned, it's all about building confidence with the right tools. Let's dive into why advanced phrases are such game changers. They don't just elevate your fluency, they add that polish and nuance that helps you build stronger connections in conversations.
Exactly. And nuance is really what we're aiming for here, right? Because anyone can say, I agree. But when you use a phrase like, I couldn't agree more, it's like you're adding this extra layer of connection. It shows confidence and emotional intelligence all rolled into one.
And speaking of connection, here's where neurodidactics comes in. Learning advanced phrases in context actually helps your brain create these stronger links. It's like you're filing the phrase under the right moment folder in your mental toolbox, so it's easier to pull out when you need it.
Exactly. It's not just about memorization, it's about wiring your brain for real-world use. That's why repetition matters. The more you hear, say, and practice these phrases, the more second nature they become.
And that's what we're here for. We're going to guide you through that repetition. We'll practice the phrases together, out loud, and in different situations to really lock them in.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to say the phrases out loud, even right now. Like really, wherever you are, just go for it. It's about building confidence and muscle memory, and yes, you're totally allowed to laugh at yourself if it feels silly.
Absolutely. Plus, the more you embrace the silliness, the quicker these phrases stick. Trust me, it's all part of the process.
Seriously, because once they stick, they're there when you need them. And when you can naturally pull out phrases like, I see your point, but I'd like to add a different perspective, it changes how people see you, how they respond to you. It's like, boom, instant upgrade.
So that's the big picture. Advanced phrases aren't just more words. They're tools to help you connect, express yourself, and grow as a speaker. And we're here to help you learn how to use them. All right, now that we've seen the big picture, let's focus on some specific advanced phrases for agreeing and disagreeing. And here's the thing. Not all agreement or disagreement is black and white. Sometimes it's about finding that subtle, polite middle ground where you can confidently navigate the conversation.
Exactly. Like if someone says something you 100% agree with, sure, you could just say, I agree. But doesn't I couldn't agree more just hit differently? It's like, boom, you're not just agreeing, you're enthusiastically on board. Let's practice that. Say it with me. I couldn't agree more.
I couldn't agree more. Now your turn, listeners. Go ahead, say it out loud. Don't be shy.
Nice. Now for the moments when you want to disagree, gently, of course. Let's say you don't really agree with someone, but you still want to keep the conversation positive. Instead of just saying, I don't think so, you could say, I see your point, but I'd like to offer a different perspective. It's polite, respectful, and keeps the dialogue flowing.
Exactly. And that phrase works in so many situations. Work meetings, social conversations, maybe even when deciding what movie to watch with friends. Let's practice it together. Repeat after me. I see your point, but I'd like to offer a different perspective.
One more time. I see your point, but I'd like to offer a different perspective. And listeners, go ahead, say it out loud with us.
Great. Now let's talk about those idiomatic expressions that advanced speakers use. For strong agreement, you could say, you've hit the nail on the head. It's like saying, yes, that's exactly right.
Totally. And it's a fun one to use. It's got personality. So let's give it a try. You've hit the nail on the head. Go ahead, listeners, your turn.
Now for disagreement. Politely, of course. Instead of saying, I don't agree, you could soften it with, I'm not entirely convinced about that. It's diplomatic, but still clear. Let's practice. I'm not entirely convinced about that.
One more time, everyone. I'm not entirely convinced about that. And remember, the tone you use really makes a difference. Try saying it with a thoughtful tone, almost like you're inviting the other person to explain their point more.
And here's the neurodidactic tip. Context and repetition are your best friends here. Take a moment to think of a specific situation, maybe a work discussion or even something light, like deciding on a restaurant with friends. Imagine yourself using these phrases in that moment.
Exactly. Visualization actually helps your brain create stronger memory pathways. It's like you're practicing twice. And don't forget to mix it up. Use these phrases in different tones. Try being super enthusiastic with, I couldn't agree more, or really measured with, I'm not entirely convinced about that.
Let's do this together. Pretend I disagree with something you say. I'll start. Repeat after me. I see your point, but I'd like to offer a different perspective.
And I'll jump in with agreement. Repeat this one next. You've hit the nail on the head.
See? Practicing like this, in small interactive bursts, really helps it stick.
Now that we've practiced navigating agreement and disagreement, let's take that foundation and apply it to one of the biggest conversation skills, expressing opinions with confidence. This is such a critical skill, especially in, let's say, professional settings or even in debates with friends. It can totally change how people perceive you.
Definitely. And the key here is to go beyond just saying, I think. That's fine for beginners, but we're aiming higher, right? Using phrases like, from where I stand, or, it's worth considering that, makes your thoughts sound more thoughtful, more deliberate.
Exactly. It's all about framing your ideas in a way that invites respect and attention. Like imagine you're in a meeting saying something like, in my view, this is a step in the right direction, instantly positions you as someone who's considered the options.
Right. And it's not just about sounding professional. It's also about flexibility. These phrases can work in casual settings too, like when you're discussing what movie to watch or where to grab dinner. From where I stand, sushi sounds like the perfect choice.
Haha, yeah. It's about making your point but keeping the conversation open and engaging. Let's pause here for some practice, everyone. Say this one after me. From where I stand, this seems like a logical approach.
Let's try it again. From where I stand, this seems like a logical approach.
Great, now put your own twist on it. Imagine a situation where you'd say this, and picture yourself delivering it with confidence. It's like rehearsing for the main event, you know?
Exactly. And speaking of confidence, let's look at another one. It's worth considering that. This is such an elegant way to introduce an alternative or a new perspective without being confrontational. Say it with us. It's worth considering that.
One more time. It's worth considering that. Go ahead, listeners. Try it out loud. Don't be shy.
And here's a neurodidactic tip. Try tying these phrases to specific situations. Let's say a work scenario pops into your head, like sharing an idea in a brainstorming session. Picture using, it's worth considering that, when presenting your thoughts.
Right. Visualization's such a powerful tool. When you pair a phrase with a realistic context, it's like creating a shortcut in your brain. The next time you're in a similar situation, boom, your brain's like, hey, remember this one?
And it's not just about work. This applies to any kind of discussion. Like, imagine you're talking about travel plans, and you say, from where I stand, a road trip would be more fun than flying. See? Precise and memorable.
Totally, you're not just giving an opinion, you're enriching the conversation. All right, let's practice one more. Repeat with me. While I understand the reasoning, I'd argue that...
Exactly. And it's such a polite way to challenge someone's viewpoint without sounding, I don't know, too forceful. Let's do it again. While I understand the reasoning, I'd argue that...
Perfect. So, quick recap while it's fresh. From where I stand, it's worth considering, and while I understand the reasoning. These are your go-to tools for expressing opinions confidently, whether you're agreeing, disagreeing, or even just throwing an idea into the mix. All right, everyone, now that we've honed our skills in expressing opinions with confidence, let's take it a step further and look at a powerful strategy to elevate your conversations even more, asking advanced, open-ended questions. These are the kinds of questions that not only keep the dialogue flowing, but also encourage deeper engagement.
Exactly. Closed questions like, "Did you enjoy it?" can only get a yes or no answer. But an open-ended question, like, "What's your take on this?" invites a much richer response. It's a simple tweak, but it makes such a big difference.
Totally. And here's the neurodidactic piece. When you ask open-ended questions, it not only keeps the conversation alive, but it also creates stronger memory connections because you're actively listening and responding. Let's try one now. Could you elaborate on that a bit?
Let's repeat it together, listeners. Could you elaborate on that a bit?
And here's another one. What's your take on this? Notice how it opens the door for someone to share their unique perspective.
Exactly. Let's say it together now. What's your take on this? And go ahead. Practice saying it out loud wherever you are. Remember, building that muscle memory is key.
And let's make this fun. Picture yourself in a conversation, maybe a team meeting or a dinner chat. Now imagine using one of these questions. It can totally shift the vibe of the discussion, right?
Right. And for an even bigger boost, try pairing your question with a genuine tone of curiosity. That little touch makes the other person feel heard and valued. It's a win-win.
For sure. So, quick practice round. I'll say a question and listeners, you jump in with an answer. Ready? What's your take on this?
Great job. Now let's flip it. You ask us the question. Could you elaborate on that a bit?
Nice. Keep practicing these back and forths on your own. Imagine yourself asking and answering these in real conversations. It's all about making it feel natural.
And as always, neurodidactic strategies like visualization can really lock these in. Try picturing yourself in a specific scenario using these phrases, maybe at work, in class, or chatting with a friend.
Exactly. All right, let's wrap things up. Today, we covered so much, from agreeing and disagreeing to expressing opinions and now deepening conversations with advanced questions.
And remember, the key is to practice out loud, visualize yourself using these phrases, and most importantly, have fun with it. Learning is a process, and every step counts.
Absolutely. We're so proud of the progress you're making, and trust us, these skills will pay off in big ways. Thanks for spending time with us on Neuro English Now.
Take care, everyone, and happy learning.